Thank you for the intro and for inviting here. Everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I hope you all had productive start of the year. I'm originally from Russia, and usually New Year holidays in Russia are until January 10. So here in US, I feel like I'm so ahead of everyone, already doing so many things. So let's start. My name is Victoria, and I'm in Web3 and crypto industry for more than 10 years, I think now, which sounds such a long term. I've been a CEO of Cointelegraph, which is one of the biggest media outlets in the industry. And several years ago, with my colleague, I started a PR agency. It's called In Cryptoland or ICL, with my former colleague from Cointelegraph. Her name is Alice. And now we run different organic PR campaign, media buy campaigns, and work with verticals such as AI, general tech, blockchain, and our clients get featured in many top outlets such as New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, and many, many, many more. So, as you see, here are some examples of the articles we did for our clients, and today I'm going to share with you some hacks on how you can approach PR, or which goals you can achieve, and what can you do by yourself when you are a startup founder. So before starting, let me ask you about the stage your company is. So who is now more before fundraising stage? Please raise your hands. Okay. Who is after fundraising stage, building a product, growing a product? Okay, thank you. So I guess we will cover both parts because it's 50-50. And please add me on Instagram, tag, share what kind of insights will be the most interesting for you. And we will cover both more high-level ideas about PR and also more step-by-step instructions on what you actually should do to get featured in the media. So let's start from thinking on what is actually the most valuable currency right now, except Bitcoin, of course. Any ideas? Attention. Exactly right. So when you work with PR and marketing overall, the main thing and one of the most important skills now is to be able to manage people's attention, right? And when you want to be featured in the media, you should always think what the media is interested in. And in any partnership, when you want to collaborate with anyone, it's a great approach to think what my partner is actually interested in and how can I help this partner to achieve the goal. So when we think about the business model of the media company, it works the way the more attention and the more traffic the website has, the more money the media outlet is making. So both media outlet and the journalists who are working for the outlets are interested to produce the most attentive capturing stories. And when we think what actually attracts most attention, it's emotions. So it's very important to give your brand a personality, and actually two most strongest emotions which capture attention are anger and happiness. So you can play with those two emotions, but every time when you think of the story you want to create, it's good to think which value do I give to the audience, which problem I solve, and not just to talk about your product, but actually talk to the people and to talk about their problems so they can relate to you and to your problems. Now a little bit generally what PR is. It's public relations and building long-term relations with your audience through different channels, and it can include such platforms as paid media, earned media, social media, and owned media. So owned media is a blog, paid media is when you do some sponsor stories, press releases, all kind of paid promotion, and earned media is organic coverage when you get mentions or news from the outlets which were created by the editorial team of the outlet. So very, very often companies and startups come to us and ask, oh, can you do like one article about us in Forbes? Can you do one article on TechCrunch? And then even if the startup gets this one article even on the big outlet, it's not that, like for example, some of our clients were featured in New York Times. And the number of traffic you get may be like maximum several thousand of people. And although like such one-time coverage can give you a spike in traffic, it will not give you any long-term results. So good PR strategy is actually about understanding what are your messaging points, who do you want to talk to. And based, for example, when you understand that your target audience are investors, for example, then based on that, you need carefully choose the outlets you are targeting to work with. So even not for many companies to illustrate, general big media outlets are even useful. It's very often that tier 2 smaller outlets, but more niche, can be much, much more productive and helpful for your business. For example, if you're targeting to increase your sales and to achieve a certain kind of partnerships, it's better to go to a more industry specialized outlets, which is read by your target audience, rather than going to a general business outlet where there is so much audience, but no one cares about your niche. So now also I feel like from the client requests, very often projects and businesses do not really understand what kind of events are possible to do to pitch organically and what is not. So here I'm giving several examples, what actually worth trying to pitch organically and what not. So for example, if we take like Web3, crypto, blockchain, big fundraising announcement, if you have a good fundraising round happened with famous VCs and investors, media outlets really love covering that, and I would say this is one like of the most easily covered news triggers. Or if you have really big partnership with a famous company, with a famous brand, this is also worth pitching. But when it's small product update or it's a token launch, token listing, it's very, very difficult to get the organic coverage for this. But if you want, for example, still this kind of product updates to be featured in the media, you can just go for paid channels. This is also a part of the communication strategy, and there are a lot of different press release packages. So for example, here I'm given an illustration that there are services like Cision and Newswire, which does press release distribution within 24 hours. So for example, if you want to announce your token listing or a product update, you just go to this platform, and like for couple $1,000 you can publish your press release on more than like 300 different outlets such as Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, Business Insider. It usually goes like everywhere in the press release section. And then when people Google your brand in Google search, they will see that all this like was featured in those outlets. Of course, press release does not have like as much trust as publish an actual news story or some organic coverage which can include different formats. So here I give examples of different formats which you can work with when you build your PR strategy. So press release we have already talked about. It can also be a news trigger, it can be interview, brand mention, expert comment, and thought leadership. So in your PR strategy, ideally, you should work on all those different profiles. I assume like most people here are founders. So for founders, for both situation before fundraising and after fundraising, I would say it's quite important to have a strong personal brand, which would include coverage of you in the media and also your social media platforms. Now, like everyone is looking at our social media profiles, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I think you agree when you go to a profile of a person who has several thousand followers, it already adds much more social trust. And for example, when you just start building your speaker profile, it can be difficult straight away to be like invited to a big conference as a speaker or to have a big interview in the major outlet. But what can you start from is start giving expert comments on your topic. I would say this is like the easiest way to kick off your personal brand. And there are special platforms which you can use to do that. The most convenient one is called Quoted, and this platform is actively used by all kinds of journalists from all verticals. There are a lot of journalists from Cointelegraph, CoinDesk using this platform. And the thing is, when journalist is preparing material, usually due to editorial guidelines, they need to provide different sources of information and rely on different expert takes. So when a journalist prepares an article on a certain topic, it can be for him very, very time consuming to go and manually search for an expert for the topic, then reach out, then wait for the expert to answer, and then go back and forth. So this platform, which is called Quoted, is basically a marketplace which connects experts with the journalists. And usually journalists, when they need such expert quotes, they post their answers while they're preparing the article, and they say, for example, I'm interested to people who have experience in NFTs. I see that NFTs now are picking up. Do you actually think it's true? And then they say that they are giving like 1 or 2 days to receive the answers. And in the service Quoted, you can just review these requests every day and see which would be relevant for you as an expert to comment on. Yeah.
What's it called again?
Quoted.
Can you spell it?
Here.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
so in this platform, you can just upload your bio, say that, for example, you are building this kind of NFT product, you have a deep expertise in this vertical, and you have a lot of strong opinions about that, so the journalist would understand you are actually like a good expert to comment on the topic. And usually for this kind of requests, you need to prepare like 3-4 paragraphs of text. And ideally, you should have like really strong and interesting opinion about the question, or have a lot of like insightful data, which is not available to the public. So like now, we're also seeing that a lot of founders started using ChatGPT for content production and for this kind of answering to the quotes. But honestly, I think ChatGPT can be good for editing content, but when you just rely on ChatGPT to prepare all the content, it comes out super bland, and it does not have like really deep niche expertise. And journalists, when they collect the comments, they really want something spiky, and again, something that would attract attention, have some controversial opinion inside that, which would trigger people's attention and motivate them to comment to the article and to read the article. So this is a great way to start. And then when you start building your product, it's also super important to network. And in PR, it's actually also possible to do. Usually when we think of networking, we think that we want to meet potential clients, that we want to meet potential partners, but it is also very possible to build connections with the relevant journalists and with editors, and those are very, very valuable connections for your future coverage. And you can do it online. Basically, overall, when you create your PR strategy, you can create the list of targeted outlets you want to be covered, and you go specifically on the website of every media platform and check out different topics. Then you find the topic which is relevant to your niche, and you will start seeing that about every niche there are several journalists who really specialize and interested in this particular topic. Then you understand, okay, this is the journalist who is covering your kind of products and your kind of topics. So usually there are like not many. You would pick maybe 2 journalists from every media platform, and you would have around 5-6 like top priority outlets where you want to be featured. So from every platform you would have a couple journalists and an editor, and then, for example, on Twitter and on LinkedIn, you start following them and you start engaging with them without like pitching them at the start. You just like ideally build human connection. And journalists usually they do not have like such huge following, and again, what all people like, they like attention. So usually they start noticing when you're regularly liking their posts and commenting, they will get to know your name, they will get to know your brand, and then later when you need to actually pitch something to them, the probability that this person would actually read your message or email is increased versus when the person sees a message and email from someone he has never heard about. Now let's talk about thought leadership. Again, like as a startup, for example, it's not that often that startup has a huge news trigger, like a partnership with a very famous brand or like huge fundraising event. But when you build PR for your company, ideally you need to build a consistent media presence. I'm sure all of you have heard about 7 touching points. So people, readers, you want them to consistently see your brand, to consistently read about your brand, and to do this, you use all those different formats. So even when you do not have a huge news trigger event, there are still formats which you can use to get the media presence. So thought leadership is one of such formats which you cannot use in a like too salesy or in a too promotional way. Usually in this kind of content, you are not even allowed to talk specifically about your product because this type of editorial format aims to show your expertise or a controversial opinion or strong opinion specifically about certain problem on the market. And this is again is a great thing for building strong personal brand. We see that it is super valuable on a pre-fundraising stage when you as a founder can get featured on such outlets like Business Insider, Fast Company, in Web3 space, Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, Blockworks, they all accept this kind of format. And for example, when you do pitching to an investor, you include that you as an expert have actually strong ideas about your niche, and you were mentioned by this kind of Tier 1 publications. It also again increases your weight socially and in the industry. And I'm giving here again that thought leadership should not be bland, it should not be too general. Ideally, you want to attract people's attentions and be very controversial in order to attract people's attention. So how actually even to come up with the idea what to talk about? Basically, again, you research the platforms where you want to be featured on. Overall, most part of the Tier 1 and Tier 2 media, they have those formats called opinion editorial or thought leadership. So you just go on the platform and you find specifically this section on the website, which is called opinion editorial. Go inside and you will see all the latest articles which were published under this format, and you will have an overall understanding what kind of headlines are published, what kind of topics are published, and you will have a feeling how to actually write a thought leadership piece. So then you find an intersection between the topics covered in these formats and your niche and your opinions, and then you put it together and try to come up with the topic idea. Then usually for this section there is a specific editor in the outlet who is responsible for publishing and approving materials in this section. So again, you need to go connect with this editor, and after engaging with him for some time, you can suggest him that you can prepare this kind of thought leadership and pitch him your idea, and he would give you some feedback. Actually, some outlets, for example, I think editor of Cointelegraph, for example, he has like an open Google Doc with all the guidelines on how the opinion editorial piece should look like, and sometimes he even posts in this document what kind of topics he is now interested in, and this again simplifies the brainstorming idea. If you see, for example, that he is actually interested in the topic you have expertise in, it's like much easier than coming up and brainstorming something by yourself without any data. So then you pitch your idea to the editor, and if he approves it, you prepare it in accordance with the guidelines of the media platform. And like overall the media guidelines are the same, but still they can have different requirements on the length of the headline, on the length of every paragraph, what kind of words you can mention in the title, what you cannot mention, and things like this. So to build like good relations with the editor, for example, of course, ideally you would write a material that 100% fits the guidelines, so editor has less work to do actually editing the content you're preparing. And here I'm giving an example. I'm not sure. Can you see anything on the screen or not? So I just went today and did screenshots on Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, and Blockworks of the sections with opinion editorials and thought leaderships, just to give you an example on what's on the agenda now. So the most hot topics now are all around Bitcoin ETF, regulation in US, and crypto Web3 trends for 2024. So at any point of time, you can go just like that, research what's getting published, and try to come up with a new angle which would fit some of those ideas, and it will increase the probability that your ideas will be taken by the editor. So then usually in this piece, you do not speak about your product, you speak about the opinion you have about the particular problem, situation on the market, or maybe you can do some predictions for 2024, how you see the market will be evolving, why. If you have some insightful data, statistical data, it's always very good to include. All the journalists and editors love when you don't have just general opinion, but you actually have facts that prove that your opinion is right. And this is an example of the pitch structure of how it should look like when you send it to the editor. This particular topic was not connected with Web3, but it will still give you a pretty good understanding overall how it should look like. So first, you include your controversial opinion, the point you want to make. And in this example, it was an article, like kind of research, that now people are actually so overwhelmed with their like office and tech jobs that they start valuing more having an opportunity to be on the farm, on the nature, and that many people actually want just to leave their corporate job and move back into like farming life. And this is the controversial point, that's the trend. Then you include the research base here, for example, that there was like a survey done that actually 61% of people in US agree with this point. Then you give a little bit more statistics and say that you're gonna interview several people who think about that, and then you give several lines about yourself and your bio. And this is example of the pitch you can send to the editor before starting actually writing a piece to get the feedback if the media platform would be or not be interested in this particular topic. And even if the editor is not interested, once he is in contact with you, you can actually ask, like, okay, you're not interested in this topic, but maybe let's brainstorm together, or maybe you have a list of topics that you are now interested in. Some media outlets, when you start contributing, then editors even start sending you in emails like a statistics, for example, for the previous week or for the previous months, which article got the best performance in the media. So again, you will start have an understanding which media outlets, what kind of headline style have, what they are generally covering, and things like this. This is the list of relevant publications that in Web3, blockchain, tech, take opinion editorials, which are CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, Blockworks, Daily Hodl, Benzinga, Investing, Business Insider, Fast Company, Tech Times, and Entrepreneur and Forbes are paid memberships, but those are pretty good options. On the Entrepreneur, they do not even mention that this is a paid program, but you can apply and pay. I think the fee now is around $3,000 per year, and every month you can publish a piece on Entrepreneur. I think they call it Entrepreneur Leaders Circle or something like this. So as an expert, you can be published on Entrepreneur every month. I have seen, like, there are many agencies who offer, for example, like pay-to-play models and just offer you pay for one publication and they publish it. And both, I think, Forbes and Entrepreneur such agencies, they ask around $10,000 per one publication. So this kind of like paid memberships, if you know how to use it and about such opportunities, you can save a lot of budgets and just do it yourself. Now let's talk on how actually to pitch the journalists. So when you work with format like opinion editorial or thought leadership, you mostly interact with the editor, because in this situation, editor works with contributors and you act as a contributor. But if you want your piece to be covered by a journalist as a news or as a feature format or as an interview, you need to interact not with the editor, but actually with the journalists. And now a lot of startups, they take approach that they just write a press release and then they send it out to like 100 of journalists without even customizing it. And such approach usually doesn't work at all. and why like many companies actually work with PR agencies, because it's important to understand what is the ongoing news agenda, again, what kind of headlines are in the news, and connections with the journalist as well, of course, are very important. So ideally, when you want the story to be covered about your product, you need to pick several platforms you are targeting, maybe like 5-6 platforms at max. And again, go and research which journalist exactly covering your niche, and see specifically what kind of headlines they're putting and what exactly they're writing about. And based on that, you need to come up with the PR angle which would be relevant for every publications you are targeted to be featured on. So, like depending on the media platform, it can be one news trigger, but for every platform you would slightly like differ the exit PR angle, and how would you prepare the headline, how you would prepare the press release. And then when you created like several different PR angles and found the journalist you are targeting, then first you have a top priority list of maybe 1 or 2 publications where you want ideally to be covered, and then you offer to this journalist an exclusive story, and you do it one by one. So first you approach one journalist and create a very customized pitch saying like, hi, I have been following you, I have seen that you were recently covering this, and that, I specifically liked this article, and I came up with the idea which you might be interested to cover as well, and then you give the information about what exactly you want to talk about. You might offer journalists to do an interview with you as with the founder, or just to generally say, for example, that you have this insightful statistical data which is not available to the public, and that this kind of story can be created based on this data, and your product is solving this problem, you're actively covering this problem, so let's discuss how we can collaborate on that. So first you are sending to the first top priority journalist, and you give them maybe maximum 2-3 days to answer, and then if there is no answer, you move to the second priority journalist and the third priority journalist one by one. Then, if no one answers, there will be no exclusive story, but there is still a chance that your news will be picked up. Then you just take the rest of the list and you send out the press release to everyone you are targeting. Then, after 2-3 days from the initial letter, you can follow up and try to remind to the journalist, like if he read the email, if he is interested to cover. Ideally, it's better not to follow up more than 2 times. Typically, if like after 2 follow-ups the journalist has not answered to you, like most likely he will just not cover the story. But sometimes also it's happening, we have seen it a lot, journalists they would not even answer, but then on the embargo date the story actually gets out. And embargo date is the date you are targeting when something like you are ready to go publicly. So you start doing all this process usually 2 weeks before the embargo date, and the closer you to the embargo date, the bigger list of the journalists you can approach. And then on the embargo date, you see, okay, was it picked up by someone or not? And if it was not picked up, again, you can go like for the paid format, do the press release distribution or sponsor stories, but at least like you tried. And with some journalists, for example, they can answer to you like, thank you, it's a good pitch, but right now I'm not interested. Like, but this is still like available connection. At least you have a warm contact with this journalist, and then again you can talk to him like what kind of stories you are interested to cover. Maybe in the future you will be happy to comment on some article he is preparing because you're an expert specifically in the topic he is generally covering. So this way you just step by step building connections with your targeted journalists. And then Mary, like when you work with PR specialists or PR agencies, I have heard a lot that they can say that if there are no news from the company side, they start telling you, oh, we did not do any media coverage because nothing interesting happened from your side. And this is a sign of a bad PR person and a bad PR agency, because every day in the world, hundreds of news pieces are published, and it's always possible to come up with the angle that would be relevant to your product. And this is like art of like PR and marketing professionals to be able to come up with the right narrative to make people interested in your product and you as a founder, for example. And again, as I mentioned before, I think it's very important not just try to sell your product. Usually, for example, when in press releases you try to include a lot of phrases, best product, the leading product, without citing like any facts why you think your product is the best. Journalists, editors usually do not like it, readers do not like it. It's always better to add some personality into your communication, to speak, for example, why you created this product, what was the story behind, which challenges the founder faced, why you decided to build this exactly this way. Tell some personal story, personal failures, for example, are super popular to be covered both on social media platforms and on general media platforms. And it's always better to talk about how exactly you can help people so they can relate to you, because like in general no one gives a shit about your product if they cannot use it, if they cannot solve any of the pains they're having. Then if something was published by the media outlet, it's also important to distribute it everywhere, like everywhere you can. First, for example, when your thought leadership piece was published or a news piece was published, please don't forget to mention it on your social media, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, probably on the email newsletter. And for example, it's very good to mention the journalist or the editor who got you published. So again, people always like mentions, likes, and attention, and this way you are warming up the connection with this particular journalist and with the media outlet platforms. So here is the example of my friend in his LinkedIn profile and on Twitter profile as well. He just like posts all these publications he received, Business Insider, Bloomberg, and you see again, it's like straight away add some social proof. Oh, this must be a strong expert in the niche. He was like covered on like all possible platforms. On the website, when your product gets featured somewhere, usually like products have this section featured in, or press talking about this with all the articles. And in your, for example, partnership outreach and in your sales outreach, you should always add something about that I'm from this product, it was featured here and there, like this media platform wrote about us, because overall, like PR and communication is not a performance tool and not a direct user acquisition tool, but how you actually measure the results of the successful PR campaign. There are like number of different indicators, such as, for example, the increase in the response rate, the response in the deal closing, the increased number of the incoming requests from potential partners or from investors. But to achieve this, you need to use the maximum of the achieved publications and include it any way possible in all your social media platforms, on your website, in your sales outreach, in your partnership outreach. So here you can book a call with our team, and we will do like a short consultation and probably answer some of the questions. So if you would want to discuss working with us, we'll be happy to talk. So thank you so much. I hope it was interesting lecture for you, and I'm happy to answer some questions if you have any. Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question. If you're speaking about leadership, like as a PR expert, once we're speaking about social media profiles of a personality, and we're not talking about LinkedIn, but we're talking about Instagram and Facebook about the person, should person share some kind of personal life there, or like because we are seeing different approach to this? It's either like full with like I did this, I did that, I go there, I go that. Do business need at some kind of point be attached with a personal lifestyle? Should we trust how editors and PR reflect on that?
Yeah, I think on your own platform it's good to publish something personal. Of course, like overall, for example, LinkedIn and Twitter are more like professional platforms where majority of content should be around like business information, but still I would say 10-20% is good to add personal touch. And even in your business stories, you still can create personal touch. For example, as I mentioned again, when you tell your story, why exactly you decided to build this product, it's great to add some personal background that, for example, as a founder, you were struggling with this, and that's why you decided to solve this problem. And when you're able to add this kind of personal information, it's usually much more relatable for everyone. If we talk about like super person, more like personal, not business related, that you went to this event, that event, or some your individual interest, I think it's still always good to add personality to your profile. Just maybe on the professional networks, it should be not more than 20%. Instagram, I think, is treated more than like personal network. There, I think it's fine to like publish more personal stuff.
Does your agency help people to understand these needs and to like push them towards the right direction?
Yeah, so we do like both organic PR campaigns and media buy campaigns. And when we do PR campaigns, for example, we also do personal branding for the founders. And in this case, we actually work with X and LinkedIn of the founders and do both general media coverage and also personal social media.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So PR is kind of like a vehicle to like build a narrative about your product. So my question is, what are like, can you list maybe 2 or 3 common mistakes made when trying to build a narrative about a product that you see founders make?
So first, I think I already mentioned be like too salesy, just to talk about yourself, your product as the best, but not actually talking about the problem you are solving and which value you are adding. Then like when it comes to, for example, coverage part and pitching journalists and media, I would say it's not individual and customized approach. So for example, when you send out the press release to thousands of different journalists every day, they get like over hundreds of emails, and I'm sure all of us are also spammed with a lot of cold email campaigns. I personally, for example, receive every day maybe 2-3 emails with the headline "Question Victoria." I don't know why everyone is now picking this subject, but overall, and especially in the era of so many AI-generated campaigns, massive campaigns, people value more and more human-generated content and human-centric approach. And when they see that you actually care, that you research the profile of the journalist, of the media, that you understand what they're generally covering, it like increases the probability of getting featured like very, very much. Then some companies also, I think, have like a too broad PR strategy, not the focused one, and for example start targeting only like big general business media. And as I mentioned, it's not even always a strategy that makes sense. It is like much easier to be published on tier 2 and tier 3 publications within like 1 month of like doing that, right? But the outcome can actually be 10 times more if compared that you will be featured on the like general business. So it really depends on the product you're building.
Thank you.
Do you recommend a different approach for D2C versus B2B?
Well, I think that the channels you would target for the marketing strategy, yes, would be different. So, for example, platforms like Instagram and TikTok are not that good, I would say, for the B2B, while for D2C brands, it's like better. And again, for example, for the B2C, I think you should use more user acquisition instruments and put more budget on paid marketing and like this kind of performance tool to actually get the users. Yes, you still need to build some brand awareness and trust and get some stories published to show people that you are expert in your niche, that you can be trusted, but still like the majority of the budget I would allocate more towards like platforms like TikTok or Google Ads, or in Web3 there are now like some on-chain targeting platforms and things like that. While for B2B, for example, you would target more speaking at podcasts, speaking at events, sponsoring events, organizing events, do general media like strategy. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much.